Captain Jack here. Donkey's annual BigMode game jam wrapped up earlier this month, and I thought it would be fun to take a look at the best of the best from the competition. The theme this year was power, so most of the games have a slight electrical theme, or at least have the word power in the title. The final placings actually haven't been given out yet, so the ones we're looking at here are my personal favorites. Let's get started. PSSX 3 is a simple little snowboarding game that has you twisting and turning as you make it down its one course. The whole thing here is that the game is incredibly unforgiving, with just one misstep forcing you to start all the way over. There's a lot more than meets the eye here, with the spacebar building up your jump meter like a Tony Hawk game, and the ability to grind on things and grab your board with shift. The fact that it's so hard is kind of part of the appeal. You'll be trying over and over again as you try to get it exactly right. And for the amount of gameplay here, I've played much longer than I should have. This was the best score I got. Don't look at the letter grade, please. PSSX 3 is much more than the sum of its parts, and if you want to try to beat my apparently terrible high score, the link to all the games mentioned here will be in the description. Corridors of Power is probably the funniest game on this list. It starts out with you getting fired by your boss, taunting you as he lives at the top of his prestigious office building, and you decide to let your complaints be known. It's a mad dash up to the top of the building as you destroy and demolish computers, faxing machines, and people's lives. You'll have to avoid security that try to stop your white-collar revenge fantasy, as getting grabbed by them ends the run. The screams of gibberish fills the air as your carnage reschedules hundreds of Teams meetings and puts dozens into early retirement. This game is only about 5 minutes long if you know what you're doing, but it's consistently hilarious all the way through. Ragdoll physics paired with the garbled screams of little me lookalike office people is just oh so good. Blade Bearer is the definition of minimalist. The game features exactly one sword, and that's it. You'll have to orient your sword in different directions with the WASD keys as you deflect and land attacks on your foes. Holding shift flips your sword upside down, and you'll have to do this to unlock the other half of the moves. Filling an outline completes an action. The white outlines are blocks you have to perform, and the red outlines are your actual blows that reduce their health by 1 every time your blade meets its mark. Usually you'll have to defend quite a bit before there's an opening for attacks, and the attacks are much less forgiving in their timing. Slowly you'll make your way to the king's tent, and the text and sound effects and blood pooling up on your sword really adds to the imagination of what's going on here, almost like an old text adventure. It's all in your head, really. If you miss too many blocks, your health will go to 0, and you'll have to start over that section again. The difficulty does ratchet up on those later fights, but it always feels fair, which is the mark of any good game. And Blade Bearer is much harder than it looks. Divine Dice looks like $1,000,000. It has this style that I can't really describe. I guess I would say it's cosmic evil. You'll go around and use your die to roll and take damage off of enemies, and the drops you get from killing enemies can be converted into power points that can be used to unlock chests and paths on the overworld map. You'll even collect extra die, and you'll have to use those die slots sparingly, as you have very, very few. So you'll be picking between keeping a die with 3 1s and 3 6s, or just a normal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 die. These decisions are really important as they represent your attack power every roll. You better be careful, because if you don't kill that enemy in 3 rolls, the stake at the top right of the screen will be taken off your power level. And if you don't have enough points to cough up, you'll die, and you'll have to start all the way over from the beginning. It's pretty useful to fudge the numbers by using your power to take a bit off the top of the enemy's health, in case your die aren't gonna make ends meet this time. There's just a lot of content here. Consumable items, passive items, and at least a dozen different enemies. Divine Dice just screams polish, and it feels like a retail game. Power Blade is like if Portal was built around a sword instead of a gun. You'll be given the Power Blade that has an extension cord on the bottom that can be plugged in order to attack enemies, deflect, and retract your cord to the outlet. Each mechanic is shown off individually, but when they're all added together, you'll get a very complex experience for a 48-hour game jam game. At the start of each level, you'll have to carefully look around and make sure you always know where that next outlet is. You don't want to be stuck without one. This game is very good at making you feel like you're doing something the game doesn't want you to do, but it's all very intentional. The game is always one step ahead of you. It's just fun to move around in this one. And if I had to guess, it's probably the game that's going to win the actual game jam as a whole. Power keys is an extremely unique concept, yet a simple one. Every single key on your keyboard is represented on screen, and the collection of mini-games here are built around this concept. Help a character across the gap, grab the cherries, and this one's just breakout. It bridges that physical, real-world gap that games rarely do, and you'll end up using both hands and 4 fingers at a time to get the most out of your available keys. And you'll have to start to get inventive too, like with this ball game, when I realized in order to keep the balls from sliding off the edge, I would basically have to form a U with my fingers. There's something about this game that's very universal. I feel like you could show this to anyone of any age, young and old alike. The only problem I have here is that it's pretty short. I need more. And that's a good problem to have. Veni, Vidi, Vroom has the best premise ever. You play as Hondius Civicus, a car that landed all the way back in 1st century Rome, and it's your quest to be the winner of the Colosseum Games. The carnage is just comical here, and you'll mow down countless gladiators as you make your way to the top. Charging them straight on will never do. Instead, you'll have to build up your speed by drifting, and then unleash it in a devastating boost. Between rounds, you can upgrade the speed and handling of your car, and you're gonna need it, as javelins and catapults are introduced into the mix later on. The game has this amazing sense of humor, and it kinda has the art style of a mid-2010s mobile game. The difficulty is actually pretty high too, with the last level or so taking a few tries for me. Luckily, if you hit 5 enemies in a row, you can gain back a hit point, and you're gonna need that, as enemies might be slow, but having 8 of them surround your car is bad news. This one isn't even close to the most complex game in the game jam, but it has to be my favorite. It is such an absurd concept, but it somehow feels so intuitive. There's even an epic showdown with Spartacus, the game's boss, who is almost impossible to beat. Oh yeah, you're driving a car.
Hey.